Hello, Twins fans, and thank you for tuning in to the 2023 Minnesota Twins Trade Deadline Primer presented by Crack and Wax. Crack and Wax is a local card breaker and seller since 2008, raising nearly $100,000 for charity in that time. You can visit him on Twitter, Facebook, and the ISO Marketplace using the links in the video description below. The ISO Marketplace features nearly 40 sellers and 2,000 different listings where you can find something for anybody who collects baseball cards. With this primer, let's review where the Twins are at right now. As of now, they are 8-2 since the All-Star break, 3 games up against the Cleveland Guardians in the AL Central, and absolutely will be buyers at the deadline. No matter how fraudulent you think this team is, kind of like 2022, it is unrealistic to expect a team to sell when they are in first place in their division, no matter how bad the division is. Again, let's go back to 2022 when the Twins were leading the division and they bought a bunch of players and it didn't work out. They're going to do the same in 2023, but it's going to work out this year, and here's why I believe that. The Twins have the best pitching staff in all of baseball. Okay, maybe arguably the best pitching staff in all of baseball. They have a great rotation, they have a great bullpen, and that is what wins in October. This team is built to win in the playoffs. They just need a little bit more help from their offense, and that's what they should be buying mainly at the trade deadline. Now, they might add a bullpen arm just because you can never have enough pitching. You never know when injuries are going to pop up, and especially relievers are just some of the most volatile players that exist in professional sports. And so you never know when something's just going to go wrong. I mean, look at Jorge Lopez. In the first half of 2022 was the most dominant reliever in baseball practically, and then since then he's been fine. And so always good to have more depth. We do have Caleb Thielbar and Brock Stewart coming back from injury at some point, but again, I think we'll look to add a cheaper bullpen arm here, as well as a right-handed bat in the corner outfield and or third base position. We absolutely have a need for just generally a right-handed bat. In fact, Falvey has recently said that is going to be one thing they target. But in terms of where they play, again, I think the corner outfield and third base are your primary positions. So from a corner outfield perspective, the Mets have been shopping Tommy Ham and Mark Canha. The Rockies reportedly are making Randall Grichuk available. Those are guys who are not going to be super expensive, but they're going to be productive members for the Twins. Grichuk is probably the cheapest of the bunch, and Canha and Pham are probably pretty similar, but Canha does have a team option in for next year, so that'll probably up his cost just a little bit. On the third base side, we have the possibility of acquiring Jeimer Candelario from the Nationals. Again, somebody who's not going to be super expensive, but will ultimately cost prospects because the Nationals are not in contention at all. And then the biggest name that the Twins have been tied to, and there's actually 2 of them, one of them doesn't play third base, but Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt of the Cardinals are 2 really big names that have been thrown out there on the trade market by the Cardinals, a team that was, like the Mets, anticipating to be buyers and to be competitors this season, and for one reason or another, things just haven't clicked. And so the Twins could be in on those sweepstakes as well. But what do the Twins have to give? What is expendable for the Twins? Well, let's start in the corner outfield, because we don't have a shortage of corner outfielders. It's that we have a surplus of left-handed hitting corner outfielders. From Alex Kirilloff, who mostly plays first base, Trevor Larnach, Matt Wallner, Max Kepler, Joey Gallo, and maybe even Nick Gordon, who's been out for a while. I don't know when he's going to return. He's kind of more of a super utility, but nonetheless, he's another name to add to the list of depth that we have, not only as corner outfielders, but as left-handed hitters. And then you look at the infield, where we also have a surplus there with Kyle Farmer, Willie Castro, Jorge Polanco, the list goes on and on. Of the various names that play infield, I think there are 3 that have a little bit of value, and that is Jorge Polanco, who I haven't seen being kicked around a lot, which I think he might have the most value of a non-prospect Minnesota Twin. Royce Lewis, who of course has value despite all the injuries he's dealt with. And then Jose Miranda, who has had a great 2022 season. He hasn't been healthy all year. He's been dealing with a shoulder since spring training, and that might be why he's struggled this year. But it would be a sell low for the Twins, and I just don't really like that. And so I think Royce Lewis and or Jorge Polanco would be decent names. And Jorge Polanco is an interesting one because for a team like the Mets and the Cardinals, who they might be selling on this season, but they're not going into a full rebuild, or they probably aren't. Jorge Polanco is still controllable for 2 years. When he's healthy, he's a top of the order bat who can play second base and, if needed, can play shortstop and third base. So he's a more interesting name than I think people are really giving him credit for because of the team options, because of the versatility, and he has a plus bat to boot. So that's one guy that I wouldn't mind dealing just with the depth the Twins have with Royce Lewis, Brooks Lee, and other prospects that are a little less heralded, like an Anthony Prado type. And so those are the names that I think are expendable in the infield and the outfield. And then it just comes down to what prospects are expendable. And again, this team is built in October more than any team that we've had since 2019. I think every prospect should be on the table. If it takes Brooks Lee to net Nolan Arenado, who's still under contract for 3 or 4 more years after this, in my opinion, you absolutely do that. And so I think everything's on the table. The Twins should be buyers. The Twins need to get some right-handed bats into their lineup that don't have the high strikeout rates to boot. And I think this team could make a run in October. That's not a homer take. They have a very good pitching staff, and that's what wins in October. Before we head out, please go to the Crack and Wax ISO Marketplace. Right now, he has this sweet 2021 Topps Finest Kent Hrbek Auto, which I would love to have in my collection if I didn't already have one. Humble brag, sorry about that. But make sure you check out the Crack and Wax ISO Marketplace in the video description below. Leave any comments, and I will be happy to respond. Thanks for tuning in.